Hi, in today's video I'm going to be doing another project with glass. Typically when I prepare the glass I use some sandpaper on it, scratch it up a little bit, clean it off, and then I use this wallpaper wallpaper glue adhesive, and some water to adhere the papers onto the jars. I'll put a link down in the bio for another video that I have just on preparing glass, or at least the way I have been preparing glass for encaustic, so that if you are interested in seeing that, it gives a little more details about what I'm doing. I had the idea to make these jars and put some lights in them, some fairy lights or tea lights, I'm not sure what they are called. And later on in the video you'll see I tried to show you what that would be like, but all of the lights that I had were not the right brightness or the right color for the particular jars that I did here. So I couldn't quite show you the impact that I was trying to go for with the lighting, but these would work great to put flowers in, to put any kind of a dry decoration in, or again if you wanted to illuminate them from the inside once they were done. They make a beautiful little table setting. So in the meantime, if you want to follow along, you can see how I create these encaustic mason jars. Oftentimes as I'm finishing out one of my glass jars or vases, I'll realize as I'm looking it over there are some areas where maybe the paper has shrunk slightly and it leaves some gaps. Sometimes it's nice to leave those the glass just exposed, but the encaustic won't always stick there. So you need to know that if you want that to be part of your effect. But I usually try to cover up all of the glass, so just finishing up all the little holes that I missed that I didn't realize were exposed. So I let that dry completely. Sometimes it just takes overnight. In this case I did let them set for several days because I was working on several different things. And then I had created these pieces with some metal or twine and plaster wrap, and at this point I am just going ahead and adding the water and adhering these onto my pieces, creating some texture and interest. Once that plaster started to set a little bit, I went ahead and pulled out my tar, and I am putting it on very lightly and in a random effect. Once this tar is applied, I also then let that set for a few days and tried to let it dry out as much as I could. I put this on lighter than I have in some of my other pieces, and it did dry out much better than some of the other pieces that I've worked on. So I guess in this case lighter was better. Now that they're all dry, this is what they look like, and although they look pretty cool, I wasn't done with them yet, so I'm going to go ahead and use a charcoal pencil, and I have some Sennelier iridescent pastels and an oil pastel, so I'm going to add some marks onto this layer, and then I will begin putting the base layer of encaustic on. Oftentimes when I am creating the lines and marks on my different layers, I will follow the line of the previous applied material. I like my pieces to be organic looking, and so generally I don't have anything in mind with the different shapes that I create as I make the marks and the lines. Hopefully that comes across as you can see how I am putting the lines onto these mason jars. So when I fuse the first layer, I like to make sure it absorbs into the mulberry paper. Generally you can see that. I don't know how well it picks up on the video. You'll see the different materials change color. That usually means that it's absorbing the wax and heated up correctly. The glass does get very hot, so if any of you decide to try this on glass, just keep in mind that the glass heats up quickly and it does retain the heat, so you need to be prepared to go slowly and just be very cautious. I applied some white encaustic onto that layer and then went back in and created a little more texture. I do that by letting the encaustic cool slightly on the brush and then kind of scuttle it over all of the different texture that's already on the glass to just make it a taller, deeper texture structure. At that point then, as is my usual pattern, I will go ahead and take some of my tools, create some marks into that warm wax, and I'll be filling that here with diluted tar. So it does create quite an interesting impact. For any of you who have seen my previous videos, you already know that I like to use vegetable oil as my blending medium, and it also works with the tar. So what I've done is taken some tar and mixed it with some vegetable oil to make it more liquid, and so that I can then use it to blend it over all of the texture that I created and fill in all of the marks. I also use the vegetable oil to clean the excess off of there so that it cleans it up nicely. On these pieces I went ahead and applied more white encaustic over that layer just to kind of push back some of the contrast that I created and again just make another layer of interest. This piece of fabric that I knew I wanted to work in, but I kept trying it at different places and in different layers, but every time I put it on there it just didn't seem like it was the right fit. So I went ahead and pulled out my thread and started winding some of the thread around here to add another thing to look at. The twine that I used was starting to unravel a little bit, so I went ahead and took some of the wax and a very light layer and put it on the tips of those and twisted them around and gave it a quick light fuse, so as that sets, then hopefully that will not unwind anymore. I have these Pearl X metallic pigment powders. I don't pull them out very often, but then every time I do, I realize how awesome they are. But I used this antique gold and a makeup sponge, and went ahead and applied some of that just in random areas to give it a gold sheen. At this point, I tried a couple of different things to show how you could illuminate it from the inside. My little lights that I had weren't the right color, so it wasn't working well, so I grabbed a flashlight and shined it in there so you could at least see the impact. But given the right light, it would be a pretty neat, very beautiful effect. So at this point, I'm going to now do the same thing to this vase that I did to the first one. I'm applying the encaustic. I'm going to put the different layers of white and everything on there. I do figure out a way to use that piece of fabric on this piece, and you'll see that coming up here shortly. So after I repeated much of the process I did for the first glass with the layers of white and clear encaustic and the mark making, I went ahead and took that piece of material and applied it on there. And then I took the encaustic and just put it across the top half of it, created some texture and fused it on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and use again that tar mixture to enhance the marks and the texture that I created. Often I like to put the marks in once I have some of the filler product on there, because it helps me see where I'm making them and how they're going to turn out. And then again, using the vegetable oil to clean that off of there. I had to be kind of careful not to get any of it on the actual dry material that I left showing. Once again, I'm finishing this with that Pearl X Ancient Gold Metallic pigment, giving it a little bit of a rich look and a shiny look. And here in just a moment, I'll go ahead and show you both of these together and how they turned out. But that just about will wrap this one up. I hope you enjoyed this video, and looking forward to making more as I continue on this art journey. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would hope that you would do that and come along with me as I continue to make encaustic art.